Welcome to the Living Alone podcast, where we help you reclaim your confidence and energy through taking control of your wellness. I'm Paige Hope.
And I'm Tracey Vlahos. Join us for quick chats on wellness, personal growth, hormone regulation, and more.
Well, welcome to another episode of Living Alone. And Paige, I am really passionate about this particular episode here because I have a feeling that it is an episode that no matter how old you are, I'm not saying males don't deal with this, but if you are a female, you're going to be able to relate. And that page is all about emotional eating, stress eating. I like to say binge eating. It really kind of encompasses all of that. And I think all of us have probably been able to go through places in life like, it's been a little more stressful than other times. But I would say for myself, it was a big deal. This was something that I felt like was really a hold of me. And when I was younger, Paige, no one was talking about it whatsoever. And I really felt like something was wrong with me. So it took a lot of years and finally me going back to school and then really studying it, the psychology of eating, then personally working with someone, having it click. And then now for many, many years being able to share these tools with others. But I really want this to be an episode that people listen to over and over again, because for myself, I know it was something that I had to practice a lot. And we're also starting to go into the holiday season. And I feel like the holiday season page really even, it can get us off. One, it's the biggest sugar season, as I say, from Halloween clear through New Year's Eve. We're like on this sugar high, and we're going to talk about that, plus the stress of the season and everything that comes with that. So I really feel like that this is the time that this episode, I really hope helps so many women and males out there listening.
Well, Tracey, I'm so excited because I know that you've honestly worked many, many years to get where you are today, to have that healthy relationship. And let's be real, normalizing the conversation around this is very important, because I really do, any woman I've actually talked to about this has opened up about having some sort of binging, some sort of stress, some sort of trigger that makes them want to binge, right? And so I'm excited to dive in with you and get some tools, share this with our audience, because this is huge. And let's be real, everybody, you're not crazy if you've been through this or currently going through it. And we're going to give you guys some of those practical tips. So Tracey, to kick us off, I want to help the audience understand a little bit why people even binge eat and stress eat. Where does that even come from?
Yeah, I kind of thank you, because I really do want to set the stage. And you really said something. You said that binge stress eating. And so when you really think about it, our lives are very stressful. For myself, I'm going to pause to say, for many, many years, for probably nearly 28 years, I worked well over 100 hours a week, right? So being a single mom, working over 100 hours a week and traveling, that stress was always there. So, and by the time nighttime would come, I would be so stressed out and be like 10 o'clock. And I would think to myself, I probably have 5 more hours yet to work. And I'm going to have to sleep for 3 or 4 and do it all over again. And we don't even realize that all of a sudden those triggers of stress, but I want to pause to say, I just gave you an example for myself, but I would tell women, stress is different for all of us, but stress is equally as stressful. So yours may be a completely different stress. And I always wanted to stress that part of it. Because of that stress, food is very much so, Paige, joy, right? We love the smell of it. We love the taste of it. Let's think about it. Every holiday coming up, it is all about food. If even, I can remember, I don't care if I'm getting together with my girlfriends, if we're going out to dinner, if they're coming over, it's well, what can I bring? Well, what can I make? Where are we going? It's always, I can remember when I was going into the corporate office, we would be there at 8 a.m. and already talking about, well, what are we getting for lunch today? Right? It's always a conversation that is happening, because conversations happen around food. We love food, and food is joyful. So when you have stress in your life, then if you are kind of that emotional stress binge eater, you're looking for food to bring more joy into your life. And that I didn't realize. And so I had somebody really help me understand, well, Tracey, here's where you're at. This is why I can, and I'm going to see if other people perhaps can relate to this. And I'm going to use these words very loosely, is I would be good, and I'm using quotation marks with my hands. I would be good all day long, meaning I would just be fueling my body. I had lunch, dinner, like not even. And then all of a sudden, it would be game on. And I didn't realize for myself, I was dodging. I was using going into the kitchen, stress and binge eating as a dodging mechanism for me to like not have to sit down and work some more, not have to go and think about, how was I going to manage the kids, what we were going to do. Because so many women have said to me, oh my gosh, yes. I'm so stressed out about this, maybe partnership or a husband or something, and like whatever that is. And you're right, Tracey, like all of a sudden, I don't want to go deal with it. And so I want to use food to numb myself, but also to bring me joy. I've worked my butt off all day and I think to myself, I just want a cookie because that cookie is going to be so healing to me. Like you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. So somebody asked me one time, Tracey, what are you really hungry for though? And I was like, what? And they're like, no, you said you're dodging. What are you really hungry for? Are you really hungry for more sleep? Are you really hungry for more peace in your life? Are you really hungry to be there with your kids some more? One, I want you to even start asking, what are you really hungry for? Because you're really using that type of hunger for food. And I thought to myself, they're right. I wasn't literally hungry, but by goodness, I wanted food and I wanted that joy. And so I realized that really what I was hungry for, I was using food to be able to shove it down. So I kind
Oh
of
my
just wanted
goodness.
to I know that was very much so high level, but I always like to kind of start there so people can start understanding oh,
Yep.
I see it now.
Well, and I think the biggest thing you called out there was identifying where the stress came from and actually thinking deeply within yourself, why am I wanting this? So Tracey, this leads me to my next question because of course, if we're binge eating and we are trying to almost like mend something within ourselves,
Yeah.
we first identify those triggers, whether it's emotional, whether it's something going on with work, all of the other things that you identified. Now,
Yeah.
my second follow up to that then is once they've actually identified the trigger, and it might be a few different things too. Like, let's be
Oh,
real. I would say from my personal experience, my binge was severe when I was really into the fitness industry. So it might not just be the trigger of stress. Mine was when I was like, it was the all or nothing mentality. And so for me, my early 20s, I'm grabbing a whole jar of peanut butter and eating the whole thing of peanut butter if I fell off even a little bit, right?
yes.
And I've actually never said this out loud, but it took me a good 3 years after that period, to actually build a healthy relationship with food. And now I eat very intuitively and I have a very beautiful relationship with food. But I just want to point that out. So if you still
Yeah.
are a binger, it might be other areas, and maybe we haven't identified those areas either. But so please reach out to us. But there
Oh
are
my
many
goodness.
reasons why people emotionally eat. So,
Yes.
Tracey, going with that, what is the impact on our health when we actually binge? And then, of
Okay.
course, we can go through the tools because I think it's helpful to understand what we're doing to our bodies when we put ourselves in this position.
Yeah. And I'm glad you really started there because I'm going to answer that and then go to the all or nothing. Okay. Because so many times that's going to trigger us. And I think a lot of women are going to be able to relate to this. So, a lot of times, I'm going to say to this the volume of food that I was consuming. So, it was a point in my life where I'd want to sit down with a gallon of ice cream, right? I used to say to her about, if you ever done this before, I would take it out of the freezer. I would open it up and only going to take just a couple bites. I mean, Paige, just a couple bites. So, matter of fact, I was going to take my spoon and like level the top off, right? Because the kids were in it. You know, it was bumpy. It wasn't level. I was just going to take a couple bites and like level it. And so I take a couple bites and level it. And I think, oh, well, that side needs a little more leveling, right? And then I'm taking another bite. And the next thing I know, though, so this is gonna dissect into a couple different things is because of the stress and mentality and everything that was going on, I couldn't even remember tasting it, having joy with it. And the next thing you know, that was two bites that I was simply gonna get instead of dipping it out into a bowl. I had the entire container and I would get to the end of it and go, oh my gosh, I don't even remember tasting this. But all I know is my mind was racing so fast and I just consumed an entire thing of ice cream, for an example. And so for me, right, what that's doing to your body, first of all, the consumption of food, the raising of cortisol that's going on in your body trying to break that much food down it was so hard on my body. A couple things was happening, to be honest. I had actually slowed down my metabolism because it was always kind of a nighttime eater. So now I'm trying to sleep at night. But my body was working hard to be able to digest all this food. So you can imagine your body inside. It's trying to break down the food. It's doing all these things. It's going through the intestines. It's doing all this. It is so worked up that I could never fully even rest. Okay. So I'm going to say that, like, I remember thinking, why have I been able to go to bed even back, like for several hours and wake up so exhausted? Well, my body was never being able to fully just rest, to be honest with you. It was trying to digest this food. And at nighttime, especially, your body is trying to detox itself, right? There are different, if you even look up Chinese medicine, you're going to see that there's a whole calendar, like from 2 to 3 o'clock, it's doing the liver. And then from like 3 to 4, it's your spleen. But that's all really true. Well, your body never has that time to fully recoup itself. And now all of a sudden, it is affecting your hormones, your metabolism, your insulin levels. Your body is not, you're waking up with more aches and pains. Now all of a sudden, mentally, right, when you're exhausted, tired, or not feeling well, it is now playing on your mental health. And the cycle starts all over again. I used to say it every day, all the time.
What I think stood out to me the most out of all of that is because, again, I remember that time as well. My lack of sleep, having interrupted sleep, was a big thing with my hormone imbalance as well. And so when you take all of that, like, your hormones are also going with you on this journey. So if you keep having this relationship with food that, affects all of these other things, your hormones get out of whack as well. So it's important to just remember your hormones need that consistency as well. And so these tools are going to be so great because, Tracey, I think a lot of people don't even know how to identify and then fix some of these issues. So now talk us through, you mentioned the joy of food and mindfulness. So talk about the journey that you went on and what we can do to be a little bit more mindful, and perhaps, I know for me, actually choosing different coping mechanisms, like, even different hobbies and things like that to get you out of, say, the kitchen when you're in a binge.
Yes. We're going to talk about that. And we're first let's start with this first, because we were just talking about that emotional psychology behind it. Going to bed, telling myself, I'll never do that again. Like, and I meant it. Like, you do mean it. Of course you don't want to do it again. And then next day, right? Maybe I would get to 4 or 5 o'clock. I'd be in the office at the time, and there would be donuts or whatever is sitting there, cookies, whatever that is for you. You're at home, the bag of chips. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? And so first, I'm going to start here. We have to get out of the mentality of all or nothing. Because for me, I identified food that I wasn't, quote unquote, I'm going to use this word loosely, like with quotation marks, bad or not good for me, as Oh my gosh, I've messed up. I can't believe it. I told myself last night I would never do this again. And I'm having maybe a bite of a donut, right? Well, now my mind is racing. I'm like shoving this donut in my mouth. Now, I've not tasted the donut. I haven't had joy of this donut. Now, there's 3 donuts maybe left in the box, and I might as well eat all 3. Or the Girl Scout cookies, please. Oh, I just grab 1 or 2, and I have the whole flippin' sleeve. Okay? So here was the first thing that when I work with women on this, it's the number one thing that I say. First of all, no more do I want you to take this out of your vocabulary. You never cheat. You never do. But I would say to myself, I was cheating and I couldn't believe I was doing that. Now I'm inhaling in my cortisol. Instead, if I looked at that and thought I wanted it, I'm giving myself a treat. But here is where I can't take credit, but the tools I learned by working with specialists and going back to school, all right, was this. They said, Tracey, what I want you to do is instead of inhaling the donut or whatever that is for you, I want you to taste it. Like, go over there. You're having a treat. Like, darn it, girl, go have a bite and actually chew it instead of inhaling it. There's times I think, how does my poor body even digest food? I don't even know if I chew it enough for it to break it down. I think to myself, I'm practically swallowing it whole. It would be so fast. They're like, go taste it. I love cinnamon. Like cinnamon, like, go taste that cinnamon on there. Chew it, smile. Actually smile. Have another bite instead of scarfing it down and not tasting it and inhaling it, because that's what we want to do, which starts the vicious cycle of beating ourselves up. They're like, no. So I will say to you, the first time I can still see myself on the 4th floor, and I would say our little vignette at the corporate office, and I walk over to the beautiful white box, and there's 3 donuts left, is why I said 3 donuts, and I pick up one, and I mean, this is going to take habit. Like, I wanted to like take the bite, which I did. And it just is like a mechanism. Your body just automatically goes into the mode. Your mind, like scarfing it, like inhaling it. And I had to like literally say to myself, taste the food, chew the food. Girl, this is a beautiful little treat. There's nothing wrong with you. I took another bite. I'm like actually chewing it. And I wasn't worried about somebody seeing me, because I thought, oh, if somebody sees me have this, oh my gosh, like that's even worse. No. What's wrong with having a treat? You're not cheating. And I remember even cutting it in half, this time, not always, throwing the other, and I took the other half, I carried it to my desk. I was going to enjoy that donut. And I did. So what I want to share with you is no more that you're cheating. I want you, if you walk by that bakery, buy the one brownie, whatever it is for you. When you get in the car, if you want it then, I want you to actually taste it. Because I realized that when I did the other, and my cortisol and my adrenals and my hormones and psychologically what I was doing to myself, because if I did and I had the 3 donuts, I might as well order pizza on the way home. Now tomorrow I might as well have this, and you know what? I might as well just eat what I want through the weekend, because I'm going to start all over again on Monday. And I had to get out of that. That matter of fact, if I had that, whatever it is, I'm going to call mine was a donut, because I love things like that. I went home. Who cares? I still will make my regular meal instead of thinking, oh, well, what can I have tonight? Should we just go ahead and order pizza? Oh yeah, might as well have the chips and dip too. Like all of a sudden, right? Getting out of that, but this will take time. So I want to start there. Tasting it, chewing it, being okay with it, and not beating yourself up. There's nothing wrong with you. You didn't just blow it. You're just having a treat, girl. That's all.
And we all need a treat every once in a while, everybody. We all need that. Well, thank you so much, Tracey, because again, we all need to hear from personal experiences and also make some of these conversations normal so that we can get some of these tools, and what's worked for someone can potentially work for someone else. So I love to hear that. Now, what are some things that we can do? So you talked about chewing your food, being a little bit more mindful. Because again,
Yeah.
guys, this is going to help you with improved digestion. It's going to help your hormones. Like when you also chew your food, it's going to help with a lot of things. And believe you
Yes.
me, been there, been where Tracey has been, not to the extent, but if you don't chew your food, you're going to have a series of other issues follow that. So it is important.
Yes.
So, what are some other things and ways that you kind of
Yeah.
cope with some of this? So, if it comes up again, because I know sometimes yours does,
Oh yeah.
what do you do to combat that?
Yep.
Because I think we always need little tools in our toolkit.
Always. Okay. This is huge, and this is going to go right along with it. It's one of the several tools. So the tool I give you right is don't beat yourself up. You want the treat, like chew it, taste it. But let's talk about some of those other tools that you were just talking about. Like lots of times, and women seem to be more towards the evening and nighttime is when they'll do most of the binge eating. And there's definitely psychological reasons why. So let's talk about some of those tools and how you can practice this every day during dinner. Because it was me practicing it at every night during dinner that then became habit that then helped me into minimizing. Because I believe personally that just like anything else, I mean, I have a very near and dear friend, and she's been a recovering alcoholic for like 8 years, but she still pulls out her tools. And I remember I said one day, it's the same thing. We all have a vice, whatever that is. You're going to be pulling out these tools for the rest of your life. So I always have to go back to myself sometimes and catch myself. So even sitting down to eat at night, one of the things we do, right? We're rushing, we're getting dinner on the table. And I was one of those, again, I couldn't wait to eat. And the next thing you know, I was eating so fast and I would look at my two children and oh my goodness, like they've probably had 2 bites of their dinner and I've basically scarfed down half of my plate. And so if you're one of those eating sitting down at night, so when I was working through this, a couple things that I'm going to say is one, and this again took practice. So everybody, you may have to listen to this a few times and write this down. Is I just literally uncrossed my legs just now. You can't see me. And even if you're watching on YouTube, you probably didn't notice because what the gentleman who then worked with me alongside of me going to school and understanding psychology of food and eating is he said, I want you to uncross your legs. He said, when you sit down, I want you to feel planted. Now it's easy for us because we're rushing through our day. We're rushing to get dinner on the table. We end up rushing through dinner, scarfing down food, which then goes into the binge, into the kitchen all night. And he said, I want you to sit with your feet planted. And then I want you to look down at your food and really look at it. And I'll do that. And really smile at your food. And no matter what it is, like have joy with it first. Like look down and go, how blessed am I that I get to sit down at the top? I mean, because there are people around the world who don't even get to sit down in an air conditioning house with a fork and plate. I'm sitting with my children or by myself. He said, look at it, smile at your food. I don't care what it is, Tracey. Like you're ready to give your body some fuel. And I remember like even doing that just now brings me so much joy than sitting down, getting the kids, and I'm hurrying up and I'm picking up the fork and I'm never even putting my fork down, to be honest with you. And I'm just starting that cycle of ravenous, scarfing down eating, which then will lead into the kitchen, into the night, into this whole process. And so I would look down at it. And he said, like, think about it. Like, lots of times I'll have a salad, a fruit, whatever it is. He's like, think about the growers. Like I even look at my food. Nobody knows I'm doing it in my head. And I'm like, thank you for everybody who's grown this food. Thank you for all the semi-drivers who had to carry this food. Thank you. And then it got to be a funny game. All the people who had to stock the shelves. But it made me slow down for 30 seconds enough, have joy in my heart. And I looked down at my food and I may, like I said, if you have kids or not, but I started this journey when my kids were younger. So that's why I say that. And I'm looking over at them and I'm looking at their plate and I'm like, okay, so one, pause. Be thankful for your food. Have joy with it first and smile. Okay? 2, he said, Tracey, I want you to put your hand on your stomach. And nobody needed to know I was doing this. And I started this practice. He taught me this right before I was taking my kids on a week-long vacation. And I thought, oh goodness. He said, and I want you to take a deep breath in from your belly. He said, because I want you to understand, just like if you're in the woods, and he said, if you have to start a fire, what do you have to have? Fuel, right? Food on your plate, that wood. Then you have to have oxygen to get it to burn. He said, so many people inhale and breathe from at their chest. They never breathe from deep down. He said, if you can just start with a few breaths, put your hand on your stomach to know, right? Take those breaths in. Nobody needs to know. You're looking down while you do eat your food and have the joy. And then you start to eat. It's going to slow your mind down. It's also your taste buds. You're going to be able to taste it more. The way that we're talking about our hormones, you're slowing down. You're breathing in what your hormones need, and you'll be able to digest it better. So there's another tip. Like, this took me a little while.
Okay, everyone, really quickly, I'm going to interject and just say if you can hear some things in the background, we are so sorry. We are actually in the works of creating our own podcast studio. So bear with us for a few more episodes, and it might be a little bit low quality for a little bit, but the information is very high quality. So keep going, Tracey, and thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. So I am in this amazing office space. However, so are the gentlemen behind me in their amazing office space. So I hope everybody's giggling with us, because I have a big voice that definitely carries, and they could be doing a podcast themselves for what we know over there. But you know what? That's okay. This is reality and entrepreneurship and getting information out, right? Paige and I were just talking, so I'm going to just pause to say, do it imperfectly. Get the information out is what I'm going to say. So we're going to share a couple more tips here, but just like this, you're still getting the tips. And I hope this just spoke to somebody, encouraged someone to say, you know what? Do it messy, because it's about showing up and giving information. You have a voice to share. You have information. So, all right. We're going to go right back into this. So it was like pausing for a little commercial. There was a lot of information just right there. So let's go back to sitting at the dinner table. All right, are we ready? So we've looked at our food. We're having joy. That made me slow down, so I didn't scarf my food. And I say that because what would happen, I would eat it so fast. The kids, I would be done with my plate. The kids are halfway done, and I'd look down and go, that's it? Oh my gosh. And then that made me want to, but I'm like, I didn't even really taste it. Like I cooked this dinner, I spent all this time, which then again, that's why I'm talking about the psychology of this. Why did I get up to go to the kitchen to now I needed something else? Because I didn't even sit down and enjoy what I had. So this would get me on that vicious cycle. So I want to help everyone to break that cycle of having to keep going. So once I learned how to do that, to be able to actually taste it, look at it. And then I will share with you, Paige, I played a game. Now, the particular gentleman who just, again, world renowned, who worked with me, he even said to me, Tracey, don't say anything to your family, or if you're out to dinner or whoever that you're with, as far as your colleagues, I want you to be the last one done. And I said, oh. Because I realized I always scarf my food down. I eat really fast. I'm always the first one done. And then I like to get up and then start in the kitchen to get something to eat, which then started the whole vicious cycle of me circling my kitchen 5 times to see what else I could find. And he said, I want you to be the last one done. So that meant I actually put my fork down. So again, when you put your fork down, you chew your food, you taste your food, you're having joy, you're slowing down. It breaks that cycle. We've all been there before, where I feel like I'm just numb. It's I hardly remember eating food. You have to break that cycle and all those neurons in your brain. So when you breathe and you pause and you do something to even simply put a fork down and you're sitting with your legs planted and you're chewing, it's breaking that in your brain to go back and forth, to go really fast, that then is scarf down the food, go in the cupboards, then all of a sudden go for that binge all night. You're breaking the pattern in your brain is what's happening. So he said, I want you to put the fork down, plant I want you to chew your food. He's like, it's going to take practice and time. And I will still say there are times, it's amazing to me. I've been using these tools now for like 15 years, but I catch myself every once in a while, and that's okay. And I feel myself, and I literally put the fork down, plant my feet, start chewing my food, look around at everybody else, and go, be the last one done, Tracey.
One thing that I want to share that actually helped me a lot, because I unfortunately did not get to work with a specialist like Tracey. So I'm just figuring this stuff out through multiple sources, right? And I want to go back to some of the stress side as well, which is nervous system regulation. And it's actually doing things to help relieve your stress. And so I want to share some things that still work for me to this day. And it doesn't necessarily, it's not just for binge eating. Like for me, I just want to remain stress free, because when I'm in a flow state, I can operate along peer better. I can be a better friend, a better partner, whatever the case may be. So there are a few things that I swear by, and one of them is somatic exercises. And somatic exercises, if you want to just go look it up onto TikTok or Instagram, they are a series of exercises that literally help regulate your nervous system. And for anyone who doesn't understand and know about nervous system regulation, I did not know what it was 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I actually had a friend introduce a bunch of this stuff to me because she noticed that I needed a little bit of help with this. And it has legitimately changed my life to do some of this work on myself. And so that would be number one. And then taking time, I always like to say, okay, I was actually on vacation and I'm hugging a tree, because I'm like, guys, there's actually so many stats on hugging a tree and it literally relieving stress. And I was joking and I said, the hippies were onto something, you guys. They were onto something. We got to hug trees, right? So I make it an effort every day to do some sort of grounding work, and I do touch trees. As I'm on walks, people in my neighborhood can tell you, I will make contact with the trees, all right? It does something to our bodies. We are blessed creatures, all right? And there are these small things you can do to get more in tune with yourself. And so,
Yes.
nervous system regulation, somatic exercises, any form of meditation, even if you don't feel comfortable meditating, listening to high vibrational frequencies, even just closing your eyes, visualizing, these are all things that helped me to self regulate and decrease my stress. And I know that with stress specifically, it does cause for so many people binge eating. And so I hope some of my things that I still do today, just to be the best, business owner I can be, these are the things that I do literally on a daily basis. And Tracey, I don't know, can you tell the people that am I doing okay?
Oh, you are amazing, because it was one of the things that we talked about right away. And you were like, oh, Tracey, I used to be, but you're so good at meditating. And I love that is like what you talked about, because really you think about it, I did this 15 years ago. That's what at the time, putting your feet down, having gratitude and breathing. But now we've got these tools, what you said. Please, I encourage everybody, please do what Paige just shared with you. YouTube those things, Google. There's so much free information that when we are on this high stress all day long that takes us in through the night, this is how this cycle starts. But you'll start putting those tools, but you're going to start regulating what Paige said, because that regulation, to me, if you ask me, and I'm not saying I'm a doctor, I personally believe that is number one first. Because when you're self-regulating, you're not going into the cycle. Well, for me, I was in the cycle and I had to put these tools in place to stop it. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it's working both together. And so yes. I believe, Paige, that it is the number one thing, in my opinion.
I agree with you completely. And I also just think, as you guys are all on this, I mean, if you're listening to our podcast, you're definitely more into wellness and all of these things. Yes. I think another thing that can help, and this helped me get out of my binge habits in my early 20s, was actually trying to become an intuitive eater, like purposefully trying to become an intuitive eater and focusing on whole foods and not worrying about calories at all, but just focusing on a whole food diet. And I eliminated a lot of processed foods, a lot of sugar, but I'm eating really, really whole foods. And sometimes they're very calorie dense. I'm like,
Yeah.
there are days where I'm like severely over, but my body like tells me and I do it. And so I think the beautiful part about all of this work is you're going to become more of an intuitive eater, which is also important because there's a lot of people that severely undereat and there's definitely people that overeat. So when you become intuitive, that is really the beautiful place to be because you can focus on fueling your body with the right nutrients, but then you can also, to Tracey's point, have the treat and not have any guilt about it. And so I would say the end goal really should be that intuitive piece. And I get so excited with how far I've come because truly, I feel like I have the best relationship with food that I ever have. But I'm like looking at all the work that I've done. Like now that I'm actually thinking about it, I'm like, holy cow, like there is so much that went into it over the years. But now that I've arrived here, I'm like, all right, it's so doable. It just takes a little bit of purposeful intention.
Yes. And Paige, I love what you just said, and we're going to talk more about that on a podcast coming up. It's really that intuitive eating because I haven't counted a calorie in years, but instead fueling my body, giving it nutrients. I'll just say this: I'm working with women and families. My son used to call me, and he'd say, "So what do we fuel?" Instead of saying, "What are we having for dinner tonight, Mom?" What are we fueling our body with? And I really made it part of the family. What are we fueling our body with tonight? Oh, what are we fueling our body with? And when you change that, and we'll talk about that, it truly makes a difference and no more calorie counting. And that has made a huge, huge difference. So I love that you were able to do these things without having to go back to school and work with a specialist. So you can see no matter where you are in your journey, these are small things. Take time, give yourself grace. So here's what I'm going to encourage everyone to do. If this spoke to you today, the first thing that I would love, because we always talk about a scooch, meaning it's just one thing that you're going to focus on. It's not an all or nothing. So if this really spoke to you, you think, oh my goodness, where do I even begin? That one scooch, I want you to go look up like somatic work. Like, how can I start regulating? And you know what? I'll give you another one. And then just in case, right, you've had whatever that is like me, that no more, I want you to take the vocabulary out. You're not cheating. You just had a treat. It's what you do most of the time that counts, not sometimes. And guess what? Being holistic and wellness is sometimes having something that brings you joy, but tasting it and having joy with it. So those are the two things. I want you to look up somatic work. I want you to add that into your day, which can just be even 5 to 10 minutes. That's it, because we are here, the both of us, to help you with that energy and confidence that you deserve and desire.